Hi there, I'm Machine Pun Kelly, and I'm here to debunk MAGA talking points. In the aftermath of the assassination of State Representative Melissa Hortman and her husband, and wounding of State Senator John Hoffman and his wife, there have been assertions from people on the right that shooter Vance Boelter is a Democrat. Here is Donald Turmp Jr. making these assertions.
Saw it the other day with the despicable shootings in Minnesota. You know, they're sitting there, oh, please be a MAGA guy. Please be a MAGA guy. Oh, it happens to be a Tim Walz appointee in his own state. He happened to go after a Democrat legislator, but it seems like he went after a Democratic legislator because she voted against Democrat Party policy, which was the unabashed, unlimited health care funding for illegal immigrants. She actually had a common sense approach, which is to say, hey, let's give American taxpayer dollars to Americans, not to illegals. Let's not bankrupt our health care system, bankrupt our coffers. I understand that's incredibly popular with the Democrat Party. They have to give these things to illegals because no one else is voting for them anymore. So they want to stack these cities. They want to stack these voter rolls. They want to influence the census so they get more votes, and they can push their asinine policies that have failed America. But, you know, the amount of rhetoric saying that this is going to be a MAGA guy, he's literally a Tim Walz appointee in Minnesota. I have a feeling that leftist Tim Walz isn't exactly appointing conservatives. Apparently he had the No Kings flyer in his thing, but he went after someone that didn't just blindly follow Democrat radical leftist dogma and actually voted in something that makes sense for the people who are footing the bill of these policies and these plans. So, you know, it's scary stuff, but it seems to all be coming from the left.
In the purest form, the conspiracy says that Boelter is an extreme leftist who is angry that Hortman and Hoffman voted for an anti-immigration bill. Some have even suggested that because he was on a committee where he was appointed by Governor Tim Walz, he had a relationship with Walz and was working on Walz's behalf. They also suggest that because there were no King's flyers in his car, that proves he was part of the protests against Donald Trump. Is there any substance to these allegations? Let's dive in and debunk these MAGA talking points. We'll begin with his appointment to the Governor's Workforce Development Board by Walz. He was actually reappointed, not appointed. The initial appointment was by the prior governor, Mark Dayton, who was also a Democrat in 2016. Boelter left the committee in 2022. But what is this committee? What does it do? What does it mean to be appointed to it? The committee has 41 members and is a nonpartisan, apolitical, unpaid advisory-only committee. By legislation, its members represent different scholars spanning business, labor, education, community organizations, government, and bipartisan legislative members with 2 members from each party. It is required by law that 21 of these members be from the business community. Boelter was one of those while he was on it. Its sheer size and inherent diversity assures a political mix. The role of the committee is to advise on how to train and utilize the Minnesota workforce. That's all. Technically, people are appointed by the governor, but since it's a relatively minor position, it is usually outsourced to staff, and the appointees usually don't meet with the governor at all. His appointment is a long way from evidence that there is some sort of relationship between him and Walz. There are other people who argue that Jenny Boelter, Vance's wife, worked for Walz back in 2010, but this was a different Jennifer Boelter, as confirmed by reporting by the Star Tribune. Put together, this demonstrates that Boelter was just one small part of an unpaid advisory committee who likely never had contact with Walz. Now let's look at the charge that Hortman and Hoffman were the only 2 Democrats to vote for this anti-immigration bill. First, it wasn't an anti-immigration bill. It was Minnesota House File 4670, also referred to as the Omnibus Supplemental Budget Bill. It was passed during a special legislative session in May to finalize Minnesota's state budget and avoid a partial government shutdown. It was the result of months of negotiation with Governor Walz and the result of a compromise with an evenly divided House. Hortman was just one of 4 Democrats who voted for it, though the other 3 were in the Senate. She did so even though she was ideologically opposed to parts of it. Her vote was what you often see with legislators who vote in compromise bills. one where they don't agree with everything in it. The trade-off was related to health care for adult immigrants receiving health care. While children of immigrants are still eligible for Minnesota care, adults are not. In exchange, the state government did not have a partial shutdown and lay off 30,000 government employees. Hoffman, however, did not vote for the bill. So the narrative that he shot the only Democrats who voted for the bill is falsified by the fact that first, they both didn't vote for it, and secondly, there were other Democrats who did vote for it. Furthermore, this is a negotiation by Walz that he worked months for. So the allegation that he was hiring Boelter as some sort of act of revenge is just ludicrous, especially when you realize that if he were opposed to it and wanted to stop it, he could simply veto it. Some want to point to the stack of so-called No Kings flyers that were found in Boelter's car. These aren't actually flyers by any real definition. Flyers provide information. These do not. They are merely pieces of paper with the words No Kings on them. There is nothing about protests. There is no time or date or location. They aren't printed in the No Kings font that the organizers use, and they aren't from the official media downloads on the site. One would think that if you were trying to support the No Kings protests, there would be something else there other than the words No Kings. What are we supposed to believe? That he was out handing out flyers that had no information on them at 3:30 in the morning when he suddenly decided to jump into his car and go assassinate politicians, tossing the flyers on the passenger seat, or that they are deliberately placed there as a false flag? While that may not conclusively prove anything, Occam's razor applies here. Boelter's politics are also known. He was a registered Republican. While Minnesota doesn't register by party, Boelter registered as a Republican while he was in Oklahoma, as you can see here. Furthermore, his best friend since 4th grade claims he voted for Trump and would be offended at being called a Democrat.
Well, everyone's calling him a Democrat. He's not a Democrat. He would be offended if people called him a Democrat. He, because of this board thing he was on for Governor Walz, it wasn't to serve. He was just serving the community. But I can't believe a political issue would cause him to do such a thing.
Did he ever bring up the senator or the representative who were targeted?
Like I was saying, no, he never talked about them. I didn't know those people. I didn't recognize their names.
Any politicians he mentioned?
Well, he mentioned Nancy Pelosi. He didn't like Jim Walz.
Tim Walz?
Didn't like Jim Biden. But
Tim Walz? What would you say about him?
well, I mean, nothing. It's just normal. Well, I don't like this that Tim Walz did this. I don't like it that he did that.
Did he mention the protests that were planned for
He
yesterday?
never mentioned the protest.
What did
What
he
do
think
you
of
make
Trump?
of everything that's happened here and the fact
Maybe
that
I
you like,
mentioned it to him, but I don't think he mentioned anything about it.
What would you tell him?
I would tell him to surrender himself so he can be taken alive, because he's like my best friend, so I don't want him to be killed. I don't want him to kill anyone else, So I think if I saw him, I could talk him down, but I don't know where he is.
And did he listen to any particular podcasts or TV shows or anything online that concerns you?
Well, you listen to Infowars, but I kind of said, well, it's like 50% truth. And, I kind of said, don't take everything what they say for granted. I wasn't a real truthful. I mean, they're on for some things, but some things are way off on.
Did he talk much about Trump? And what did he say if so?
I was a Trump supporter. Voted for Trump. You like Trump? I like Trump. And,
Additionally, he is an evangelical Christian, and there is video of him preaching anti-trans, anti-gay positions, as shown here.
No sin. Il n'y a aucun péché. That God can't take care of. Que Dieu ne peut pas enlever. nothing.
Il n'y a rien.
There's people, especially in America,
Il y a des gens, particulièrement aux États-Unis,
they don't know what sex they are. They don't know how their sexual orientation. They're confused.
ils ne savent pas ce qu'ils sont exactement. Ils ont une confusion.
The enemy has gotten so far into their mind and their soul.
Et l'ennemi est entré dans le fond de leur pensée.
Finally, there was a kill list with 70 people on it, including Tim Walz himself and Ilhan Omar, who was actually an immigrant. Hardly the target for a pro-immigrant fanatic. What they do seem to have in common is that everyone on the list is either a pro-choice advocate or an abortion provider. Put together, we can conclude that the shooter was not motivated by votes against an anti-immigration bill, who shot the only two Democrats who voted for it, because they weren't the only two Democrats who voted for it, and they weren't the only two people on the list. It is far more likely that he was a self-avowed Trump-supporting Republican, motivated by his right-wing pseudo-Christian politics, targeting people who disagreed with his pro-life stance.